Welcome to Internet Quality Academy. The channel is for the quality control engineer, civil engineer, and the site engineer who are working in the construction field. In this channel, we are dealing with anything and everything which is required to get success in the construction. Today also, I'm going to discuss about a very important topics for the concrete, or that is a special type of concrete. That is, what is the properties of the self-compacting concrete and what are the tests to be conducted at the site to verify its properties. So stay tuned until then to get the full information about the properties of self-compacting concrete and the test to be conducted. So let's jump into the subject. And if you're new on my channel, kindly subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get immediate notification. So without wasting a time, let's jump into the subject. And it's my recommendation, do not skip any part of the video. Stay tuned until the end to get the full information about these properties of self-compacting concrete along with whatever the test we need to perform to verify its properties, because self-compacting concrete is now widely used and it is a very common in the construction. That is why in your project, whenever you are using the self-compacting concrete, it is to be recommended that you should know what are the properties and how to test that one. So first we start with that. What is self-compacting concrete? That we need to know. Self-compacting concrete is highly flowable, non-segregating concrete. So first property is high flow, then non-segregating. That means when it will flow, then it should not segregate. Why? Because if the segregation of the concrete is takes place, that means concrete will not get that much of homogeneity and strength and durability will be a problem. But what is segregation? I have made a detailed video. Link is there or in the description. Please check. You will get the full information. And what is it? Concrete that fills uniformly and completely every corner of formwork. That means it is flowable and non-segregating, and it will fill every corner of the formwork by its own weight. So it will flow by its own weight and encapsulate reinforcement without any vibration. So here is the difference, that in self-compacting concrete, we don't need any vibration, but it will flow every corner of the formwork under its own weight without segregating its component. So, maintaining the homogeneity, and that concrete is called the self-compacting concrete. Now, when the self-concrete concrete is developed, how the research and development is there, and what is the history of that, I have made a detailed video on that. Link is there or in the description. Please check. You will get the full information. The next part is, what is the code in India? Whatever the code we should follow whenever we are dealing with the self-compacting concrete, that is IS 10262 2019, that section 4 clause 7 and 8. It's described fully what is the self-compacting concrete and what is the self-compacting concrete properties. It's everything is there. And then of course IS 456. Without the IS 456 we cannot do the concrete mix design, everything. So that also you need to check. Along with, there is a very guidelines, a very precise guideline given by the European Federation, that is FNR guidelines about the self compacting concrete. It is my recommendation, please read that one, or the follow, check that one. It is comprise and crisp and give the all required information about the self compacting concrete. So for that we will follow these codes. Now next part is, what is the properties? That is today's topics. Now first properties is filling abilities, next is passing abilities, third is segregation resistance, and then the viscosity. Why filling ability? That means it should flowability, or the filling ability, it should flow under its own weight. Passing ability, that means it should pass in between the reinforcement, because we have the reinforcement whenever we're doing the concrete, and it should flow without the without the any obstruction from the reinforcement. Then the segregation, that should not, there will be no segregation. And viscosity, that is a main property of the self-compacting concrete, that it is a viscous material, but that is also a very twisted. I will come later. So first check with the filling ability. What is filling ability? That is how much it is flowing the concrete under its own weight. And how to measure that? The sum flow. All we know what is sum flow. Sum flow value describe the flowability of a fresh mix in unconfined conditions. It is sensitive test that will normally be specified for all SCC as the primary check that the fresh concrete consistence meets the specification. So whenever we are doing any mix design or the concrete is coming from the sources, we need to perform this sum flow, the T500 test it is calling. So according to the sum flow, we need to determine whatever the flowability of the concrete. So what is this visual observation during the test and or a measurement of the T5 time can give additional information on the segregation resistance and uniformity of delivery. So sum flow test is the measurement. And according to the sum flow test, there are three types of self-compacting concrete. That is SF1, whose sum flow value is 550 to 650. SF2, that sum flow is 600 to 750. And SF3, that is 760 to 850. So what is that? Let me check. The that is whenever it is a SF1, when it can be used unreinforcement or slightly reinforcement. That means if the area is there is a very little of reinforcement, then this SF1 category can be used. Cast from the top with free displacement from the delivery point, and casting by a pump injection systems, section that are small enough to prevent long horizontal flow. That means section is not that small enough. And what is the SF2? SF2 is suitable for normal application, that is wall columns we are using in everyday concrete, that we can use the SF2. And what is the SF3? That is a high flow, that is 760 to 850. This typically produced with a small maximum size of aggregate less than 16 mm and is used to vertical applications in very congested structure. That means if it is a very much congested structure, we need to some flow SF3, that is in between 760 to 850. Structure with complex shapes, if the shape is not regular, irregular shape, that is also this self-compacting concrete and SF3 sum flow value concrete is to be used. Filling under function. SF3 will often give better surface finish than SF2 or normal vertical application, but segregation resistance is more difficult to control. So there is a drawback also, that also will come later. What is segregation resistance? So first, according to the flowability or the filling ability, there are three types of concrete, that is SF1, SF2, and SF3, and these are the area of application of different types of SF3. The next properties is the passing abilities. Now, first, it should flow without any obstruction under its own weight. Now, it should pass the concrete. The pass should the any obstruction, that is mainly the reinforcement bar inside the formwork. So, passing ability describe the capacity of the fresh mix to flow through confined spaces and narrow openings such as areas of congested reinforcement without segregation, loss of uniformity, or causing blocking. So, this passing ability is measuring that it should flow without any hindrance if there is a confined space, narrow space, or the congested reinforcement. That ability is passing ability is referring that condition, that if the concrete has this ability, it concrete can flow easily. In defining the passing ability, it is necessary to consider the geometry and the density of the reinforcement, the flowability, filling ability, and the maximum aggregate side. That is a part of the design mix. How we will do the mix design, I have made a detailed video on that. If you want to know how to do mix design for the self-concreting concrete, link is there or in the description. Please check, you will get the full information. So this is the passing ability. That means concrete should pass in a congested area reinforcement, narrow space. And what is the measurement? That is L box is the measurement of the passing ability. Now, according to the passing ability, there are two categories. That is PA1, structure with a gap 80 mm to 100 mm, and PA2 structure with a gap of 60 to 80 mm. That is PA1, PA2. So according to gap of the structure, we need to find out which uh, passing ability category should use whether it is a PA1, whether it is a PA2. According to my structure, I need to determine what category of structure should be thus. Next is the minimum ratio of the depth of the concrete in the horizontal section relative to the depth of the concrete vertical section should be zero 0.8. So whenever we are performing the L box talks test, that the minimum ratio should be zero 0.8 to determine that whether this concrete should flow through the reinforcement or the congested place. That L box test has to be determined and the minimum ratio should be zero 0.8. The next is the segregation. Now I have already determined the concrete head should be flowable now, or should be passing through the reinforcement or the congested place. Now we need to know that there should be a segregation resistance. That means there will be no segregation when with the concrete is being pouring. So what is the segregation resistance? This is the ability to fresh concrete to remain homogeneous in composition while in its fresh state. That means when it is a fresh state, when it is the elastic stage, that when you are pouring the concrete, it should be homogeneous. That means its components should not segregate to each other. That segregate resistance sieve test performed to check this property of fresh concrete. Now, according to the segregation resistance, there are three types of there are two types of concrete, that is SR1 and the SR2. Then segregation resistance test is the measure. Then if the resistance is 15 to 18, 20%, then it's called SR1. And if it is less than 15%, it's called SR2. Now, what is SR1 and what is SR2? SR1 is generally applicable for this thin slab and vertical application with a flow distance less than 5 meter and a confined gap greater than 80 mm. So if your structure is flowable distance is less than 5 meter and the confinement is more than 80 mm, you can choose SR1. But it is not if it is more than 5 meters and confined gap greater than 80 mm, then it should be SR2. That means segregation resistance should be less than 15%. So according to your need and according to your project requirement, you need to choose the properties, and according to that properties, the mix design should change. So that is why it is important to know what is the properties of the self-compacting concrete, and according to the requirement of the project, we should do the mix design. And then the viscosity, it is very much important for the self compacting concrete. That is, if it is not viscous, it will not flow inside the formwork. So viscosity, what they called viscosity, is a measure of fluid resistance to flow. So it is the internal resistance of the fluid that it is resisting to flow. It describes how thick or thin fluid is and its ability to deform under shear stress. So if that stress is developing and how it will develop. So it is the internal resistance to flow. It is an indicator of how easily a fluid can move. So from the viscosity itself, we can find out how easily it can move. High viscosity fluids flow slowly, that is honey, and while less viscosity fluids flow quickly, that is water. Now, for our case, it is a concrete. We need to know what will be my viscosity. According to that, we need to do the mix design. So how we can determine what is my viscosity? That is as per the requirement of the project. See, let's see. Viscosity ensures that SCC has the right balance of flowability, allowing it to move easily into place and fill complex formworks and its space around the reinforcement. Then proper viscosity help SCC to maintain a uniform distribution of aggregates and cement paste. So there will be no segregation also if that the viscosity is the proper. And viscosity, how we can measure? It is V funnel test as per IS 1199 part 6. And according to the test, there are two types of viscosity. There are two types of self-compacting concrete. That's a V1, time taken to pass the concrete from V funnel, that is less than 8 seconds, and another less 8 to 25 seconds. So V1 is less than 8 seconds if the concrete to pass take the time to pass the concrete from the V funnel, and V2, the pass the time should be 8 to 25 seconds. Now, where we can use the V1, V1, VS1 or the VF1 has good filling ability even with congested reinforcement. It is capable of self-leveling and generally has the best surface finish. However, it is more likely to suffer from bleeding and segregation. So in V1, it has the tendency or the possibility that segregation or bleeding can happen. So whenever you are designing your self-compacting concrete, you need to consider what type of concrete you need and what is your project requirement and what is V2 or VS2 or VF2 has no upper class limit, but with increasing flow time, it is more likely to exhibit thixotrophic effect. Now, what is thixotrophic is I'll come later, which may be helpful in limiting the formwork pressure. Now, it is to be very much understood to know that the self-compacting pressure, when it is flowing under its own weight, exhibit more pressure on the surface of the formwork. So that is why it is very much important to design the formwork according to the pressure or the self-compacting concrete pressure. But whenever your the thixotropic is there, it is limiting the formwork pressure. So it has also to be determined what will be the maximum pressure to be generated on the concrete surface and accordingly the thixotropic effect to be ensured. Then limiting in the pressure, improving segregation resistance. That means it is also improve the segregation. That means there will be no segregation of the component of the concrete. Experience regarding surface finish and sensitive stoppage or delays between successive leaps. So these are the V1 and V2. So let's summarize what are the properties. The properties is flowing ability, filling ability, passing ability, segregation resistance, and the viscosity. Now, in the viscosity, I have said that is a thixotrophic effect. That we need to know what is thixotrophic effect. The thixotrophic effect refers to a property of certain material that exhibit a decrease in viscosity over time when subject to shear stress and then gradually return to more viscous stress when the stress is removed. That means whenever the thixotropic is there, it will move easily. But whenever the stress is removed, then it will become thick. So it will be more viscous, that it will not flow. This thixotropic matters material become less viscous, more fluid when stirred, shaken, or otherwise agitated, and return to their original thicker consistency when the agitation stop. So this criteria is very much important for the self-compacting concrete because it is flowing under its own weight or is agitating. That means it should flow, but it will not segregate. But when there will be no shear stress or the external force, that will come to more viscous, less viscous, so that steered, so that more viscous, so that it will not flow and it will come to the original stage. So there will be no segregation. So let's see what again it is saying. Workability is when SCC is agitated or vibrated during placement, the viscosity decrease, allowing the concrete to flow in filled molds or formwork easily. And stability, once the agitation stop, the viscosity increase. And when the viscosity increase, which means it prevents segregation and ensure uniform distribution of aggregates and cement paste. So this thixotropic effect is very much important and essential parameter for the self-compacting concrete. That is why we need to use the viscosity modifying agent. So that is one type of admixture that are using in the self-compacting concrete to increase or decrease the viscosity of the paste. So these are the thing about the self-compacting concrete properties. Now, what is the application of SSC that we need to know? I take it from the FNARC books. It is a very much good books. It just and give you an idea then where we can use. See, here is some flow SF1, SF2, SF3, three categories. Specific SR1, SF2, and SF3. Here is VS1, VS2, VSF, VS2. So according to the viscosity, here is some flow and segregation or passing ability. We can choose ramp area, wall, and piles. If the ramp area, the viscosity should be VS2 or VF2, and specifying passing ability of for SF1, SF2. And what will be the sum flow? Here it is SF1. So this table is very much important for the same. I'm taking it from the IFNAR guidelines. It is given the guidelines that where we can use the concrete of self-compacting concrete. Now, what about the test for the self-compacting concrete? That is also given in the FNARC guidelines. Let's see what is the test. See, here is also given a very much in a very table manner. So what test to be favored? Flowing ability, the sum flow, consumer box, viscosity T50, V funnel, O funnel, oriment, passing ability L box, U box, J ring, segregation resistance is penetration, safe segregation, settlement column. A measured value, total spend, visual feeling, flow time, flow time. So this table also I am taking from the IFNAR guidelines. So this has given the total guidelines, whatever the test is performed, what is the measured value and what is the test method. Please check that books. It is highly recommended if you want to know about the self compacting concrete. So let's summarize about the self compacting concrete whatever we discussed today. That is, what is self-compacting concrete? What is the relevant IS code and the guidelines? Properties of self-compacting concrete? What is thixotropic effect? What is the application of self-compacting concrete? And what are the tests to be conducted for the self-compacting concrete? So all of now today about the properties of the self-compacting concrete. I hope you find it useful. And if you find it useful, kindly subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get immediate notification. And I'm waiting for your valuable comment so that from your valuable comment, everybody will be benefited. And if you want to know anything more about quality control and construction, please let me know. I will come with more content like this. And thank you once again for watching me.